This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
So my answer to going to college was join the Army. 1992, my life changed forever. PCS to Germany with my two boys, and really try to take advantage of the opportunity to travel, learn another language, the culture. It was to me the dream coming true, that everything that I'd been going through was worth it, because I was seeing another part of the world that I wouldn't have had the opportunity if I hadn't been in the military. Planned on getting out in 2000. That was really kind of a part of a joy in my life, and getting married for the second time. And I looked forward to the future. Ended up kind of becoming disillusioned, and that was the whole housing bubble thing, where the mortgage jumped from bank to bank to bank. My kids were counting on me to take care of them, to ask for that kind of help. I've done to help other women is make sure that they know what their resources are. It's for a long time I didn't understand that my service in the military counted as a woman veteran, but nobody told me, hey Eva, you're a veteran too, until I had that light bulb moment and said, my service counted too. And I can tell you it's been a long road to learn how to dream again. The community was the solution, be it churches, be it nonprofits, be it veteran service organizations, or just people like myself. We are the resources. We are the solution to help keeping women off of the street, our women veterans housed and having the resources they need and not living in a car. Of the work that grows us as leaders for our second service after the military to serve other people in our communities.
Hi, everybody. I always tear up when I watch my documentary because it was kind of a birth of sorts. And as you know, that yesterday was Women Veterans Day, June 12th every year. And that's the recognition day from when it was actually signed into law that it counts that we served in the military. And I know that there are some people who try to put a DEI spin on it. I'm a conservative myself. But I think, in recent let's think about it. Recent news cycles, even this past week with the Southern Baptist Convention, then there is an affront about what is happening with women, that we're supposed to be submissive, that we are supposed to shrink. I'm going to put it politely like that there is a move to, well, you don't need Women Veterans Day, and I didn't go out and participate in it. I was actually still kind of recovering from a procedure I had earlier this week, and I haven't quite plugged into the Fort Worth and Dallas Fort Worth area and what women veteran events were happening. But I needed some pause anyways for what's going on in the world, right? Especially with women. But I played my trailer this week because the guest that I have on the show is Paula Kemp, and if you haven't seen the rest of my documentary, I promise I will be putting it out there probably next year, and doing some grander showings on it. Because it does get to military sexual trauma. My co-star was a Navy veteran. She was assaulted on a track. She was a chaplain's assistant. I myself was raped 2 weeks before I went into basic training. So fortunately, not a military sexual trauma, but a rape nonetheless. Probably could say that I have been groomed in certain circumstances. Some of my assignments have had some senior male leaders who didn't take kindly that I was a female in the military who was getting divorced because he was an ite. And if you watch the Revivalist radio show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That the ites have some issues with things, a little twisted on stuff, but this ite didn't agree with what I was doing from his religious perspective. I'm Catholic, so I don't necessarily believe in divorce either. But when you have an abusive spouse, then that is something that makes you pause and take a little, a little pivot in life, and unplanned pivot in some cases. And you got fans already, Paula, before I even get you on the show. So I wanted to kind of preface what this show is about, a very sensitive topic on the heels of Women Veterans Day. And I think that we do not have enough conversations. I always talk about, what is the From Pain to Purpose radio show about anyways? Based upon the 4 pillars of pain, using the chair as a model. You've got the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual pain. And when you have one of those gets rocked, not by your own doing, but by something that is being agitated towards you by somebody else, then you've got to figure out life pretty fast. How do I navigate this new pain that I wasn't anticipating? Because I guarantee I don't wish any of this kind of pain on my worst enemies. So yeah, I'm sure I have enemies. But anyways, Paula Kemp, I want to make sure I get her info right. I have to put the glasses on so I can see my computer screen. Paula is a Navy combat photographer from OEF. She's a military sexual trauma survivor, founder and president of Unjustly Served, and author as well with the book of the same name. She's lived both sides of the uniform, both the honor of service and the cost of when systems fail. She doesn't speak about military sexual trauma from a theory perspective. She speaks about it from experience and lots of advocacy work that she has done, working beside. All right, y'all lay down. Sorry. Working beside veterans who were unjustly served. After leaving active duty, she turned her pain into purpose. Love that. What began as helping fellow veterans navigate the VA system grew into a national reform effort. She's the co-author of a book called Unjustly Served: The Brutal Reality of Military Sexual Trauma. And there is so much to do with that. She is trying to put it's called the BEARS Act Initiative Behavioral Accountability Reporting and Exposure System, and our access program to strengthen the documentation. And there's so much more that I see that we're going to be able to hear from Paula. So without further ado, let's see, there we go.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Hi, Paula. Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show.
Thank you. This is awesome. You kind of warned me and said, it might be a little emotional and you might choke up a little. And man, you were right.
Yeah, I told
That was
you.
a great intro. Yeah, that was wonderful. Seeing the videos brought back memories, and then hearing your story a little bit, and then acknowledging yesterday, for the female veterans, and yeah. So I just kind of sat here and it just all kind of like hit me. But that's good. I like it when that happens.
It's I think that's when we have to get in that vulnerable state. I think is when people we're real. This is not a practice conversation. We are live. But it sets the tone that there are a lot of people who think that they go through things by themselves as if nobody else has experienced it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I think the beautiful thing about what we do on this platform with Military Broadcast Radio and giving veterans a voice is that we get to hear a whole plethora of different stories, and how you're on my show, how you're turning your pain into purpose. So I'll turn it over to you and let it, how did you get started with this? What was your pain that would give listeners some insight of how you're turning it into a purpose?
Well, when I got out in 2006, I had just come back from the Middle East, and I was showing signs, a lot of anger and a lot of stuff going on emotionally, going through a bad divorce, had 3 kids, that whole figuring life out. And I ended up getting out of the military because I had a chief that was new to our unit and had given me a bad eval while I was in Kuwait and doing my job. And I had never gotten a bad eval ever in my 8 years of service. I've always volunteered for anything and everything, and been a super hard charger and loved my job. And he had given me a bad eval. Now, this was after I had been assaulted when I was in San Francisco, and covering a training, not training, it was covering Fleet Week, one of the years that I did that. I did that often. So I was a combat photographer, and a little bit different with being combat photography in the Navy was different than being a shipboard photographer. So I was never in one place for very long. They would, drop us in and pull us out to different situations and things like that. Pretty much my whole career, I was a ground pounder. I did a lot with the Marine Corps and Joint Forces. Just anything that was going on, they would just drop us in and have us cover that. But when I was assaulted, I was raped when I was covering Fleet Week, and I never told anybody. My brothers in my unit were very, very protective and supportive and just wonderful. I mean, they were my brothers and sisters. There were a couple of other ladies as well, but for the most part, I was always in it with the guys, and they trained me well and were just very supportive of me. And so I was just very fearful that if I told them anything when that happened, that I wouldn't be allowed to go off and do my job. That it's a lot of the time it's just you're deployed by yourself, and or a journalist, somebody that went and they would write the stories and I would take the photos, right? And so
right.
So I was just fearful of telling any of them, because I thought that they would, number one, I had this fantasy that they would go find him and kick his ass. I mean, it was going to be like where they would get in trouble
A
for
blanket party thing, right?
yeah, and this guy wasn't a part of our unit. He wasn't. I don't even know who he was. He was, attached to the ship that I was working with at the time. I wasn't even a part of ship's company, and he kind of used that against me in not saying anything. But I just didn't tell anybody, and I didn't even tell my husband at the time because he wasn't supportive of me being in the. And I started off in the reserves, so he wasn't even supportive of that at all. So I just didn't tell anybody. But when I volunteered to go to the Middle East, and in 2005, and it was for a very short stint. It was for 30 days. It was very impactful. I was in a lot of places, taking a lot of pictures, covering a lot of different stories and things that were going on. But when I came home, and I saw a lot of stuff that just haunted me. So when I came home, I was very angry, and I thought that it was just from seeing all the stuff that I saw, and just I don't know. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was pretty pissed off. Plus, I was going through a divorce and threatening to lose my kids and all that kind of nonsense that goes on in a divorce. So when I got my advocate lined up, and he helped me file a claim because I got injured when I was there. So he was helping me file a claim for that. And then he asked me during his intake, he's so wonderful. And he just gently asked me, said, you don't have to say it. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. But I need to ask you. He said, did you suffer any MST? And I didn't know what that was. And I was like, well, what's that? And he said, military sexual trauma. And I just started crying. I just lost it. And he was just so awesome. And so he became my pit bull on a pork chop and just helped me navigate the claims process, and went with me to my appointments, just would never let me go through anything alone. He was a wonderful big brother, became a great mentor. And as I started getting therapies, he got me connected and speaking to the vet center and my therapist and things like that at the VA. And I started getting stronger and healthier and stable, and not so angry. And this took a couple of years probably. And he said, one time he asked me if I would come sit with him while he had more women that were being referred to him. And he just felt they'd be more comfortable having another female veteran sitting there with them. So this was like around 2013, 2014. And I said, of course, and he said, plus it would make him feel comfortable too. He'd probably be a little more comfortable too. And so I was absolutely. And so that grew and grew. And he said, okay, it's time. You need to start your own nonprofit. And I ended up starting Veteran Sisters in Southern California. And it started off just being for female veterans. And it's so funny because it's not funny. I always say that. It's not funny. It's a horrible subject. But
right.
The funny part is I thought it only happened to me. And then I thought it only happened to women, because that was my experience up to that point.
Right.
But then, as I started the nonprofit, I started having more men come to me and felt more comfortable talking to me about it than they did, just VSOs and advocates and things like that. So then my awareness grew, and then I started advocating for all veterans. And then it grew into advocating not just for MST, but whatever their claim or needs were. So I've gone to college with veterans to help them get into, female veterans, to help them, until they learn the environment, right? A lot of times our survivors are fearful of stepping outside their home.
Right.
And so I just started kind of shadowing them and just walking through it with them, taking them to school or, registering for college, going to their VA appointments, getting them with their first primary care physician appointment, introductions, just helping them so that they weren't alone going through the process. Because that's what my advocate did for me.
That's a huge thing. I was telling you before about my co-star in the documentary, and I was helping her, go through some of that same stuff. When she was going through her claims exams, they sent her to the VA, sent her to this on a Saturday morning to a business office that was remote. It was, they had a van to take her and wait for her while she was in the appointment. But I drove to the appointment to meet her there, and there was not any other vehicles in the parking lot. It was so weird and isolated. I was like, okay, what was the purpose of this, to send somebody to an appointment like this when there's not other people around, and you know that you're already going to be emotional that day as it is?
Yeah.
Is your dog sensing?
He does this every single time I get a
Does he?
podcast or a meeting, and we're talking about the subject. And yes, he's my service dog, and
Yeah.
he's gotta get up and just check in with me, and he'll be down in a second. So I don't know who's
He's
the
checking
service
you
dog
out.
here.
It's okay. Making sure you're okay.
He's so funny. This is Ranger. Ranger's amazing.
Aw.
Yeah, he goes everywhere with me.
We have 2 dogs. They're right down here at my feet. They were kind of, when I got a little emotional, they were like
Yeah.
right there too.
Yeah.
They can hear it in our voices, I think.
He's so funny. He absolutely does.
They can
But
hear it.
I know that's kind of the hardest part. And then when I would go to comp and pens too. So
Yeah.
that became a big issue for me. I was a hard advocate on that. Was when I started, it took years for me with my claims process. So I have been through, that's a whole nother discussion, but I mean, I have been through the ringer with the claims process. I've learned a lot. It took me over 6 years to get my service connection. And I didn't even have a DD-214 when I first started. It automatically, mysteriously showed up in the mail after I was already 70% service connected disabled. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Wow.
And it took an act of Congress. It took a congressman getting involved to have them find my DD-214. But anyway, so when I was getting better and getting more and more service connection, and I decided to go to my comp and pen by myself, and I thought I was an expert, comp and pen goer and interviewing and all of that. And I thought it was just for my neck, or my foot was still outstanding, I was still waiting and appealing, all of that. But so I showed up thinking, I don't need to take Ronnie with me. He was my advocate. And I said, I can do this on my own. And, thinking that I could do that and handle it and all of that. Well, the doctor ended up assaulting me. So the comp and pen doctor ended up assaulting me. And that just tailspun me. And so I ended up reporting it and all of that, and going through the civil and the criminal and all of that with this doctor through the comp and pen. And so
You
anyway.
said that, and I started looking around. I got some mail. I may have to step away, let you keep talking, but I got some mail today. Yeah, today from the VA about reporting sexual events. You keep talking. I'm going to go find
I've seen that report. Yes.
Did you?
Good.
No, it's not a report. It's a letter addressed to the veterans that said, this is how you report sexual harassment at the VA.
Good.
Have you seen that letter?
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah, I think they sent it to me. I've seen it either. I get a lot of stuff through LinkedIn and different organizations that send me a lot of stuff. I have seen that. I think it's fantastic. This doctor was a real dirtbag.
Wow.
And yeah, he ended up being criminally prosecuted and all of that. But there were a wake of other victims, veterans, male and female, that he had assaulted as well. But that was when I really became an advocate about not going through the comp and pen process alone, and battle buddying up, and then also educating family members or friends of the veteran and what their rights were when they're sitting with the doctors in the comp and pen. And, and this has been, probably a good 8-10 years ago. It's changed quite a bit. It still is archaic, but it is getting better. And they're not as hesitant to allow you to bring in a battle buddy or an advocate to sit there with you when you go through the comp and pen. They used to have a real hard time with that and try to pull HIPAA in and all that kind of baloney, and I would just navigate around that. And
If it's
sit with
your,
my buddy.
if you want that person there, there is no HIPAA
Absolutely.
violation. Then they're
That's right.
coming, right? I mean, are you kidding
That's
me?
right. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Whatever,
Absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I've told this story a couple of times. So I got out in 2000. Okay.
Mhm.
And I ended up having a knee surgery at the Dallas VA. It was like 2000. That first one was like 2007 or so. So not very many female veterans in the
Right.
VA hospital at that
That's
time,
right.
right?
That's
They
correct.
plastered a sign on my door that said, "Warning, female patient in the room." And my husband asked me, "What the F is that?" He was a
Because they weren't
civilian,
used to
mind you,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know. I mean, I had knee surgery. I'd have no clue, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was I was participating in the RISC, the War Related Injury and Illness Study Center, the study at the Washington D.C. VA. So this is about 2012. So it's a week-long study where you're there in person. The VA flies you. You are inpatient all week long, and they had the same sign posted on the door: "Warning, female patient in the room." I said, "I need to talk to the floor manager."
Good.
The sign is not going to stay on. We are patients just like everybody else, and everybody needs to be professional and respectful. If me and this, I had a older Black lady, she was a Vietnam veteran. She was, and they did a procedure in the room. I wrote to the Undersecretary of Health and said the procedure that they did in the room was unacceptable, because my second husband was going through all of that. So it was he was doing they were doing the drawing of the extra fluid off of your stomach when you have hepatitis. No,
Oh, wow.
yeah, Hep C. They were trying to draw the fluid in the room. Well, that was not a sterile room. These
Wow.
these guys didn't know what they were. Yeah, they broke. Yeah, they broke the
Yeah.
first kit. They had to get a second kit because they.
Wow.
Yeah, I wrote a scathing letter to take care.
And that was with
of.
you guys in the room with her going through that?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reported it to the
Good.
undersecretary.
Good.
But the sad thing is, as much as we think things are getting better, I went to the VA the other day, and I'm a federal employee. He goes, "What do you do for a living?" This is the resident asking me this. And I said, I work for HUD. I'm a federal employee also. "Oh, so what's so special about that you get to come here for care?"
I'm not thinking that you were a veteran. What
Yeah.
an idiot.
I
Wow.
I took a breath and I said, "I hate to be the bearer of bad news to you."
Unbelievable.
But you are aware that females serve in the military too, right? That there are women veterans here. And he's like, "I walked right into that, didn't I?" And I said, "Yeah, unfortunately you did, because
Yeah, and he's not the first.
yeah, right. He's not the first. That's not the first time that has happened to me either. I just didn't go off on his hiney.
Yeah, exactly. I know one of the first PCPs that I had that I got assigned, it was out in California, and he ordered me a prostate exam. Yeah. I was like, how's that going to work?
Yeah.
I was like, what? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I still laugh about that today, but it's not funny, but it's funny.
It's not funny, but it is funny. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen some progress being made,
Oh,
like
yes.
even the World Related,
Absolutely.
even the RISC Center that I mentioned a while ago.
they updated. So, I'm working on my study, right? My dissertation
Right.
study for the unfulfilled needs of female combat veterans. And a part of that is that I saw that even the risk is they are addressing more of their study questions for women because they realized that they were not inclusive.
Right.
And that's not a DEI thing. That is just they were not inclusive of the female anatomy and asking us the right questions. Were we
Right.
affected by deployment and our menstrual cycles? Yes. Yes. uh I would skip every 3 months and then worried whether I was pregnant or not, even if I
That's right.
hadn't had sex,
Yeah. Yeah.
because nobody told us about that stuff. But
Right.
getting back to your side of things, the unjustly served. How did you come up with the name Unjustly Served?
Well, so I ran the nonprofit for about 6 or 7 years, and it grew and grew, and everything's going great. My middle son was training to go into the Army Rangers, and he died in a car accident.
Oh no.
And this was in Southern California. And so, yeah. So I, was worried I was going to tailspin, of course, with all the grief and all of
Right.
that we went through. So I kind of stepped back and eventually took a few weeks, a few months. I ended up stepping down, and it was just too much. But we also moved to Tennessee during that time. And it was too far to be flying back to California for different events and different things that were taking
Right.
place and all of that. And I felt like, the nonprofit was in good hands, and it was just time. I needed to focus on me.
Yeah.
And so I retired out, and I set myself up here and made sure I had my care team and my mental health and got all that set up. And I got to tell you, here in Nashville, their VA is phenomenal.
That's
Just,
awesome.
it should be the poster child for all the other VAs, because it really is a great, great system. And so I was focusing on me, and I didn't really know anybody out here. So I got involved in doing, just like I said, things that were just for me. I got involved in their adaptive sports, of course, therapy, music therapy, songwriting. I was just living the life, as just a veteran and not worrying about so much being an advocate and being there, being the battle buddy for everybody else. I was being my own battle buddy.
Right. Right.
Pretty well trained by then, right? So I was navigating all that and setting myself up for all that. Well, one day my friend Ricky Jones, he's a medically retired LA County sheriff, and he got medicaled out years ago, but he became a pastor, a chaplain, and he's now I was telling you, he's in Texas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at the police department out there. He's their chaplain now and runs their peer support. But back when I first started Veteran Sisters, I knew him because he was on one of the boards of one of the organizations that was kind of helping mentor and guide me and stuff. And so we met back then, and he asked me to help him with some of his first responders, females that needed a battle buddy, and they didn't have anything back then for them either.
Right.
So I just kind of started, and then a few of them were veterans, of course. A lot of our first responders were veterans or are veterans. And so anyway, so he called me, and of course he knew about Chase, that Chase had died, and had been kind of helping me navigate that as well as a chaplain. And he said, Paula, it's time. It's time for you to get back up on the horse. Your veterans need you. And gosh, I was just like, I can't start another nonprofit. I'm just not, that's not my wheelhouse anyway. It's a lot of business and a lot of other things. People I'm good with, but the business side and finances and government and all that, So he said, okay, well then how about if you write a book? And I was like, what are you, crazy? I'm like, I struggled through high school. Like, I can't write a book. So it's crazy because God must have just thumped me upside the head. And the next morning I woke up and I knew the title. I knew what I wanted to do. And my specialty became, through the years, I became pretty much, I don't want to say an expert, but I became pretty well versed at helping veterans write their personal statement for their trauma of MST. And so I reached out to a few of the people that I've helped throughout the years. And I said, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And it's just I want to create a book that's all of our stories.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a book that we're going to share, male and female, and we're going to share our stories and hopefully put it out there so that others will know they're not alone, right? That they know that they'll read our stories. And it's a hard read because it's very raw. And there are 15 stories. So we narrowed it down to 15 stories, and they're very raw. And it was pretty much, I want to say it was pretty easy because I'd already helped them write it for their claim.
Right.
So we just had to go in and just make it a little bit longer and tell a little bit more about before and after service. And then also championing, celebrating survival and, and all of that. So we put that together. And then when I'm working with veterans on their claim, and I help them navigate the claim system, I'm not a VSO, I'm not legal advice or anything like that. I just share with them how I got through it and different ways to service connect and things like that. So when I work with them one-on-one, it's different. You're so focused into, okay, here's the primary, these are possible secondaries, even tertiaries, and putting it all together and then helping them go through and sift through and collect all of their evidence to help support their statement. So I'm very focused one-on-one. Well, this was an opportunity to focus on 15 stories, including my own, that I started seeing these patterns where the military was diagnosing and forcing service members out with mental disorders. All of a sudden you had bipolar or personality disorder or adjustment disorder and all these different disorders, and trying to push the survivors out with a medical of a disorder.
Right.
So I had another veteran, a Marine Corps veteran, that I was helping him with. Like I said, I did not just MST claims, I helped with whatever their claim was. And so I was helping him navigate for his physical claim. I think it was like asthma and his foot or something. But he's a Marine, and he ended up having, he's a sexual trauma therapist. And so he has done this for like 38 years. He works in the prisons and the jails with the perpetrators, but he also, on his private practice, he works with the victims and survivors, male, female, children, so he's got his private practice. So he just brought this great understanding of a lot of questions that I had when I was helping everybody navigate and put together the book. And so I made him aware of, we had that conversation. I said, I don't understand why all these people, what is bipolar? What is, personality disorder and why? And so he couldn't believe that they were getting away with that the military was getting away with that, and the VA, with diagnosing bipolar, especially because you cannot just have bipolar
spontaneously. Right.
Yeah. It just doesn't happen, and I didn't know. But I was questioning, because I remember when I first started
I think, what is it? Because I was a paralegal in the JAG Corps, right? And we would chapter people out. I think it's that was 5-13, personality disorder. If I remember correctly, chapter 5-13. There are some things you just don't forget out of your head.
Exactly.
Because, it probably, unless they were trying to find some kind of, unsatisfactory performance, if their performance started slipping because of the catalyst, the event that had happened, then they might start writing them up. Well, this is how we're going to chapter 13 them out as an unsat performance. Not that, they were actually a victim out of something and they were shamed into not reporting. So they got their poor performance. And instead of,
going after the perpetrator. And that's why I brought up even the whole issue with the Southern Baptist Convention. I mean, because the writing on the wall for me, this was the lawyers who saying, well, the only way you can police the guys is to not have any women pastors around.
Yeah.
Then you don't have sexual harassment happening if the women aren't around there for them to act on.
That's such BS, because men, it's just as much for men.
But then is that the same issue that's happening with the military? Is the whole reason to get women out of combat because the man can't contain their own poor behavior.
But that's not true, because you have male victims. So how can they say that?
Exactly. It's a command and discipline problem, no matter which way you look at it.
It's a leadership
It is a culture
issue.
problem.
Absolutely. It's accountability problem. And we've got a lot of that in the military.
And we're not weeding the right people out. We're weeding
the wrong people out.
The wrong people out, the ones who want to be the good performers, the ones who want to serve in the military or the government or whatever position. We're weeding the wrong people out and not keeping the right people in.
Absolutely.
So how is Unjustly Served going to fix this?
Well, hopefully through awareness. So Marshall Kirkpatrick, he's the co-author. He's the Marine that is the sexual trauma therapist. And so he came in and he wrote the back half of the book. So we call it Connecting the Dots. And this was where, just in my conversations with him, he was connecting the dots already. And so he just dove into it. And it's just amazing what he brings about, understanding of what we go through during the trauma and then after. And then everything after. So, he goes in, he educates about, moral injury, institutional,
betrayal. It is
betrayal.
institutional. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. All of it. So all the different criterias for PTSD, all the CPTSD, all of, bipolar, all of the different disorders that we've been branded
and
with.
You grieve your old life when things were good and normal, and now you have this whole other situation that you weren't prepared
for. Absolutely. And so he goes in and he just explains it all. And what's so beautiful about it is that it's a survivor telling their story, and then he comes in and he gives understanding. So it's not a clinician talking about their patient. The first half of the book is the actual stories. And believe me, they're very raw. I would not let anybody edit them, meaning any editors, outside of the survivor themselves. So they're very raw, and there's cuss words and there's all kinds. It's very raw. And so he goes in and just really helps bring understanding of what they were going through, why they went through it, why they reacted the way they did, the whole fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and faint, all these different things that, gosh, I didn't know. I dealt with the shame of my own because I fawned. I had never even heard what that. I had no clue what a fawn was. I thought it was just a deer. I'm like, and to come to find out, I suffered with that shame of that forever because I am a fighter. I am somebody that has always fought bullies my whole life, not bullying against me, but defending somebody that I would see a bully picking on. Bar fights when I'd see the same thing. I've just always been a very physical, jumping in without thinking, defending. But when it happened to me, it wasn't that I froze. I just kind of went along with it to get out of it and survived it, and then shoved it all down. And then I didn't know what that was. So I didn't know that that was fawning. And I just thought that, oh my gosh, I beat myself up with, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I should have done this, I should have done that. And then the same exact thing when the doctor assaulted me. It was out of body. I left my body. I didn't respond. I didn't, it's almost like a dead fish, and I beat myself
but
up.
Doesn't our mind does mind tricks that says that didn't happen. That really didn't happen.
It's a survival.
I for years, I knew the rape happened, but then I pretended like, no, it wasn't really a rape, right? It wasn't,
right.
You just try to undermine, undermine it. And then a couple of years ago, one of
one of my girlfriends who was on that trip with me, I said, please tell me that I didn't imagine that. And she goes, no, you didn't. And I'm so sorry. We couldn't get in there to save you.
Wow.
You know,
And
it
that
just,
had been hard for her living with that all her life too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking with another veteran the other day that I do a lot of conversations with veterans on LinkedIn, and we have meetings and stuff, and I help them navigate their stuff. And so he said, Paula, he says, you know, I just want to admit, he goes, I saw stuff that happened that I was too afraid to say anything to. He goes, I never experienced MST, he says, but I know that it happened, and I saw things that were inappropriate. And he felt so bad now that he didn't stand up and do something back then. Not like he saw, you know, rape happen or anything like that in front of him, but it was the groping and the comments and the, you know, the parties and just the disking of women that he didn't stand up and, you know, and my heart went out for him. I mean, that had to been hard. I appreciated him sharing with me, you know, and acknowledging, and now he wants to do whatever he can to try to help female veterans and veteran period, you know, survivors of MST, you know, see something, say something and all of that. But
have you ever talked with Heath Hartman? You ever heard of Heath Hartman?
No.
I know Heath is in Florida. He goes and talks to active duty troops about military sexual trauma. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Marshall and I get out there and do that as well. And Marshall's creating a curriculum to help with training and educating providers too.
So he needs to reach out to my friend Lisa Bass. She started Task Force SASA. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
no.
It's in her boots program. She has a book.
I went through her program. Well, okay. Is it where they decorate the boots?
I don't know about the decorating the boots, but she's got the jewelry. If you saw I
think we talked about this
before. Boots jewelry. So Lisa is a good friend of mine. She's here in the Dallas area. I'd be happy to put y'all in touch with each other. Yeah. Lisa and I served at Fort Hood together, and their lives went off. She decided to become an officer, and I went to Germany. So
Marshall was in Germany too. He was deployed to Germany. That's so funny.
Small world, you know. I was hosting an event, and I saw her walk across. I was like, that face looks familiar. And she goes,
that's wonderful. I love when that happens.
It's really cool. We don't have a lot of time left. I told you an hour would fly by fast. So before we have two different options, you can share how do people reach you is one. You know, what are you working on? And let's talk about, you know, how do people buy your book? And then and you can answer however you know, switch the questions around if you want the answers. But what's one question I should have asked, but I didn't?
Okay, so the book is available on Amazon and Kindle. So it's Unjustly Served, The Brutal Reality of Military Sexual Trauma. And it's available, like I said, or they could go through our website, which is unjustlyserved.org. And when you get to the website, we've got three, pillars, three programs that we are working on. So we've got the Access program, which is what I've done for the last, 10 plus years with helping veterans and their families navigate the claims process. And then we've got the Ties, which is Marshall, where he is putting together training to go out and also help clinicians, trauma-informed care, and all of that great stuff, education-wise on the clinical side, and then educating institutions and job placement and things like that, corporations, what is MST, trauma-informed care, the difference between treating, speaking, PTSD, MST, and moral injury. And then the biggest one also that is super important to me is the BEARS Act. and that stands for the Behavioral Accountability Reporting and Exposure System. And that is a tool that we're hoping we can get some congressperson or senator to champion it and take it forward, that would go along with a lot of the other stuff that they're trying to work on in the House and the Senate. That would be a great tool that would go along with what they're working on. And it's more of a precursor. So it's to get in and track behavior. So it's a reporting system that would create a safe space for reporting, but it would also hold accountability for reporting, because, as you know, commands don't share their dirty laundry, and perpetrators are the dirty laundry.
Right.
So, you know,
well, they promote them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They move
so they
them,
get
they
their
report them.
benefit.
They do the exact same thing that they've done with the priests and the pastors. They just move them, and otherwise they remove us. They don't move us; they remove us.
Right. Right. So this is a tool we're hoping, and you can learn more about it on our website. And so we've got a lot of stuff. I've got a great team behind me that is just helping us grow. We also start our own podcast, so it's within that MST realm, and talking and educating, the hard subjects, and question answers. I love that. I love helping people if they have any questions about their claims process, or how to write a personal, it's not a police report. That ain't going to work.
Right.
Not going to get your service connection by just submitting your personal statement that looks like a police report, the facts memo. You got to be emotional, and you've got to share. And I love helping people do that. I don't know why. God has just made me able to handle all that. And I love helping navigate that and use it as a tool moving forward too, because once it's on paper, when you go to your comp and pens, or you're meeting a new doctor, or having to speak about your trauma, you just hand them your paper and you say, please read this. And then you can ask me questions instead of having to recall it all back up. You're sitting out in your car crying your eyeballs out because you forgot to say this, that, and the other.
Right.
Whereas if you've got it in writing, you just hand it to them, and then they can have a conversation with you afterwards. So that's a huge thing for me. And then we also help with OTHs. So because most of the time, not all, but most of the time, your OTH or other, discharges, will more than likely have mental situations in them, mental health situations. So you're going to have sexual trauma, you're going to have other traumas that we can try to help them, once again, write their personal statement to get their discharge upgrade. I love doing that too. So that's kind of something we've just started doing the last couple of years, and been pretty successful at helping them get to the right, other organizations that then help them file and things like that.
I need to connect you with an attorney, Brooks. It'll come to me. I met her in DC some years ago. I forget what her first name is. Brooks is the last name. She was working for the VA on the appeals side, and then she went into private practice.
Nice.
So I need to connect you with her.
Absolutely. The more the merrier. And this, we also work on a coalition, bringing everybody together that wants to, if any of this resonates with them, please reach out. If you have an organization or you want to be involved, we will absolutely connect you with other organizations or our organization, and just keep, charging forward on accountability. Really is the bottom line. I know
you send me the email with the act. I haven't read it yet. I do have the email. I want to help on the public administration side. That's what I'm getting my PhD in, is in public administration. So want to make sure that we, find a way to be able to.
It's growing.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Wonderful. It's exciting. It's family.
It is. There is all this interconnectivity, because there is the moral injury and everything else. But that's how our people garden grows, right?
That's right. I love that. That's right. I love being a people gardener.
Yes, you
Let's
are.
Get rid of those weeds.
Right? Hey, I pulled a whole bunch today, so I got some therapy. But writing a book and stuff like that is so cathartic. Pulling
Yeah.
weeds is very cathartic. Writing that, writing that statement out is very
Purges.
cathartic.
Absolutely. And you know
I
what? Once they get through it, they see that. But it's
yeah,
hard to start. It's hard to, wade through it. But
yeah,
I'll tell you, once you get mine was not very nice. My first time doing it was a lot of F-bombs.
yeah.
And that's what I submitted for my claim, but that got me 50%, because they were like, holy smokes, she's got issues.
She was mad. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Paula, thank you so much for joining this week. I really appreciate your testimony and being able to share, the information. Hopefully, we can get the needle moving more on Unjustly Served. So,
I would love that. My 2-year-old grandson just showed up.
oh, okay.
A podcast. Yes, Zoe. Hi.
Aw.
This is my why. This is my why.
What a cutie.
He's been sleeping in the car.
All right, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So let me go ahead and jump into this. Folks, ladies, sisters, here in Texas, in the North Texas and San Antonio areas, this is the QR code for my study. I really, really need some help. Nobody's asked us, right? You've just heard what Paula is sharing, and I'm getting my PhD in public administration. Nobody's ever asked us what we needed. My study is asking you. I chose Texas because we have the highest population of female veterans in the entire country. San Antonio, Houston, and then North Texas. But I live in the North Texas area, so I chose San Antonio and North Texas. This is for the unfulfilled needs of female combat veterans, must be out of the military more than 5 years. That's because we need to know that you have tried to use the resources, what your experiences were with other federal agencies, not just the VA, state, local, nonprofits. This is, nobody's ever asked us what we needed. I need us to help communicate what we need. If we are hoping to develop policy and represent us, then we need to be responsive and ask, and answer. So please participate. I will be sharing the link out some more. The other thing is upcoming guest, Todd Watkins, is on his doctoral journey, and I'm praying, Todd, he's kind of a little skittish, but I'm praying that Todd's going to join us next Saturday. I don't have a show on June 27th because I'll be in Tampa, Florida. That's the weigh-in time for the powerlifting. Have I been necessarily working out? No, but I got some guns. I got some guns there. I've been doing plenty of stuff, just not necessarily at the gym. Doing the recap of the VA Golden Games on July 11th. So I skipped that. No show on July 4th. I'm probably going to be in the woods somewhere hiking. July 18th is open. If you want to be on the show, you have a From Pain to Purpose story to tell, reach out to me. Let's get you scheduled for July 18th. And then July 25th is Kiani Shaban. I hope I said that right. And I have slept since then, and I can't remember what we're talking about. So sorry, I'm just brain cramping on that. So anyways, we have plenty of shows coming up. And then, of course, I'm ready to book in August. So feel free to come on the show. As you can see, it's just us, right? We're having a good conversation, giving military veterans a voice. Y'all have a great week. Stay cool, and see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, Be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.